everybody. Hey, today is National French Toast Day. Ooh, National French Toast Day. Now, if I remember correctly, back when we weren't real thrilled with France, that was like, what, in the 90s or something like that? Weren't we calling it Freedom Toast to go with our Freedom Fries? I don't know. I always called it French Toast or French Fries. Just how I am. Anyway, I don't know what you were calling it either, but there is one thing that I do know, and that is the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the Grand Poobah. Yes, I am the founder and editor-in-chief of the Gaming Gang. So, this is episode 205 on Wednesday, November 28th, 2018. So that's pretty wild. 205 episodes. Yeah, I think it's gonna end up at about 225-ish once the year is up. So not too bad, not too shabby. Especially seeing that I wasn't even sure if I was gonna do 50 of these, let alone 200 plus. So this is Wargame Wednesday. So I am actually going to unbox and take a first look at a distant plane. Maybe I should move that back a little bit. From my good friends over at GMT Games. Now, this is the second edition that recently came out. I'm not sure how available this is anymore, to be honest. I think it disappeared pretty quick because there is already a P500 for a third print, a third edition, I guess we would say. So I am going to be taking a look at this in just a bit. I do have a little bit of news today. Before I get into that, a couple of quick things. Number one, I've been running around all day long. So I do my cardiovascular rehab following my wonderful heart attack back in March. So I have recently started cardiovascular rehab, so I do that in the afternoons. So I finished that up, and then I had to go and get some prescriptions that were refilled, which of course isn't anywhere nearby where I do my cardiovascular rehab. So I go and drive over there to go pick up the prescriptions that they had called, one of these, automated messages saying my prescriptions were ready. I get over there and they're like, no, we don't have any. It's like, but you left messages. So then I had to wait to get those refilled. I was like, oh my gosh. So I raced back here, kind of put everything together as quickly as I could. And in fact, I got down here into the Duct Tape Studios about 10 minutes before the show started. So that's how much I've been running around trying to get everything together. So I don't have a lot of news today. I do have a little bit of news, so I got some pretty cool stuff. But I do want to point out this is a live stream. I know a vast majority of people do watch after the fact. But if you are watching live on YouTube, feel free. Chime in, get into chat. Chat is not on screen, but there is chat available on YouTube. I do keep an eye on the chat. It's just not on screen simply because it's one of the ways I keep some of the stranger commenters at bay. And after the news, I'm going to talk about some strangeness I had to deal with today. But anyway, feel free. If you want to say hello, you got a question, or maybe you want to see something a little closer up with a distant plane, by all means, let me know and I will respond. Also want to point out, if you happen to like the Gaming Gang channel, by all means, please subscribe. And if you like the video, do me a favor, give me a quick thumbs up. All right, so, and I do want to mention, of course, there are some folks out there who do not like that I include the tabletop gaming news of the day. If you happen to be one of them, just look in the show notes and you will see there's a timestamp. You can skip right ahead past the news. Anyway, but let's get on into the news, because if you caught my show yesterday, then you already saw my interview with designer Daryl Hayhurst as we talked about the new Kickstarter for Torg Eternity, which is going to cover the Nile Empire. Well, that Kickstarter launched this morning, and it's already 400% funded. In fact, it's just shy of 100,000, which is like a really key level because a bunch of other stuff unlocks. I think at $100,000, everybody gets a dice bowl, you know, like those fabric dice bowls for the Nile Empire. So pretty cool. Anyway, but I've got the dope on the Kickstarter. The Nile Empire is a realm of thrilling heroics, dastardly villains, and the heightened action and drama of pulp serials. It's ruled by High Lord Mobius, Pharaoh Mobius, to the transformed citizens of his empire, or Dr. Mobius, to those who knew him as a master villain in his home cosm of Terra. Terra, not terror. His empire now extends to Earth, where he rules from Egypt to the Congo, his goose-stepping hordes have expanded west into Libya and east into Saudi Arabia. Within Mobius's domain, magic, miracles, and wondrous weird science prevails. The technology of the empire is roughly that of 1930s Earth, but the realm's world laws allow for ray guns and fantastic inventions that would be impossible without normal technology. I should say impossible with normal technology. Did I say without? It should be with normal technology. High Lord Mobius and his evil legions are extremely powerful, but they didn't come to Earth alone. He comes from a cosm of masked crime fighters and heroic deeds. Some of these mystery men followed Dr. Mobius from Terra, and others have been created as storm knights transcended all across Africa during the invasion. The Nile Empire Sourcebook is an expansion designed for both players and game masters. Inside, you'll find new perks, spells, miracles, and pulp powers for advancing characters. It includes options only available to beta clearance Storm Knights as they learn more about their own abilities and the nature of reality. There's more gear designed to take advantage of the weird science available in the realm, including the powerful Rocket Ranger battle suits. Little bit like the Rocketeer, eh? An extensive status update for the default timeline. See the course of the first year of the Possibility Wars and the toll it's taken on Africa and the Middle East. Also includes a list of ongoing Delphi Council operations and who's who in the Nile Empire theater of war. The disposition and battle tactics of the Nile Empire's war machine and major henchmen are also tackled. Get the statistics for the Pharaoh himself as Dr. Mobius plots and schemes his way to the top. Heroes beware. There's new threats. Gangsters struggle to claim a piece of the action. Monsters of legend appear across the land, and masked supervillains rise to prove their worth to Mobius or take some of his power for themselves. Over 30 new foes in all, suitable for Storm Knights of various experience levels. There's also obstacle generation tables to help raise the stakes and keep the action exciting, and more. Then there's the Fires of Ra, a massive, I think it's Ray, if I remember correctly. Daryl, I believe, was pronouncing it Ray. So the Fires of Ray is a massive adventure suitable for several months of gaming. Start off in Free Venice, where a group of villains attempt to steal an ancient treasure and get swept up in Mobius's machinations all across Africa. Can you find a weakness to his ultimate war machine before its campaign of terror destroys all resistance in the region? I don't know. You'll have to back this to find out. There's also the Nile Empire GM screen with 3 panels. On the inside, all the most needed charts from Torg Eternity, in addition to the new charts specific to adventures in the Nile Empire. The outside features a single gorgeous seamless image and the axioms and world laws players need to remember. There is a really quick Kickstarter video. It's a few seconds over a minute I have to laugh because as the little splash screens are going across, I just want to do kind of like that 1930s newsreel kind of voice, right? Dr. Mobius invades! Villains perform dastardly deeds! Anyway, I gotta point out, you can score a pretty excellent deal right now on all the major items for the Nile Empire Kickstarter. Now, you can get them in PDF, and it's going to include the unlocked stretch goals. And you can get all this stuff for a $40 pledge. Pretty sweet. Now, there are add-ons that are in this as well. They're not considered stretch goals. But you can also snag the physical books plus the unlocked stretch goals for a $100 pledge. Now, that includes all these goodies. And I would really recommend, if you're into Torg Eternity or you kind of dig the vibe for Torg Eternity, check out, first of all, if you're not familiar with it, check out my review I did for the core book. Hopefully, I should be seeing the Living Land stuff so we can delve into that. But I was going to say, check it out. Give a peek to the Kickstarter because there is a slew of different pledge levels. There's all this stuff for unlocked stretch goals, which I think as of today, like I said, it just launched this morning. It's like 400% funded. I think there's like 8 stretch goals that are already unlocked. I mean, it's really, really sweet. Here's another really cool thing about this. The project runs through December 24th, so through Christmas Eve. Your delivery on the digital items, you're going to get stuff right when it ends. Now, I know in the past, when they did the Living Land, they were trying to do it like a minute after that Kickstarter ended, but they were unable to pull that off over at Ulisses North America. But it was within a few hours. They're going to do the same exact thing. So you're going to have a bunch of gaming goodness right when it ends. I'm going to take a guess. There's going to be some artwork that's not finished with these, but these are good to go. From my experience with Ulisses North America, when they do a Kickstarter, it's all finished. It's all finished. All that's left to do is like, some of the artwork and stuff like that. So very, very cool. You'll get the digital items on Christmas Day is my guess, or maybe the day after. And the physical books will be available and the GM screen and stuff like that will be available in May of 2019. Those of you who do dig Torg Eternity, keep in mind, if you didn't catch my interview with Daryl yesterday, the Isle Cosm is going to launch on a Kickstarter in about 4 months because they're trying to get the Cosms out there as quickly as possible so that they can devote their time to that big meta plot, which was one of the coolest things about the original Torg. So, pretty sweet. Definitely check that out. So, speaking of Kickstarters, my friends over at Starling Games have been awfully busy because they had the brand new Shadow Rift expansion Kickstarter launch, which is already funded. There's another Kickstarter they've got for an expansion to King's Forge, and that is steaming along nicely. Here's the dope. The Chamberlain is searching the realm for a new craft master to the king and sets a contest for all of the smiths and crafters in the land. The first one to forge 4 items from a list of the king's favorite weapons and trinkets will be honored as first among crafters and smiths. But watch out, because the other crafters and smiths will try to outdo you at every opportunity. Are you ready to forge your destiny? In King's Forge, players are craftsmen and craftswomen seeking to become the favorite of the king. A variety of dice represent the raw materials, metal, wood, gems, and enchantments, and those same dice can be used to gather new dice and purchase roll modifiers, or saved and rolled in an attempt to meet the requirements to craft the items on the king's list. An early lead is not a sure path to victory, and other players will outmaneuver and outbuild you whenever possible. Careful dice management, advanced planning, fierce competition, and nail-biting luck will carry you to the winner's circle. Do want to point out, previous King's Forge expansions have featured new dice. So there was Glassworks and Gold, items with abilities, the Queen's Jubilee, and adding a row of options to Gathering. The Apprentices. This new Kickstarter, King's Forge Masterworks, borrows from all of these precedents without adding any unnecessary complexity. There are 4 new dice types, but their functions are pretty simple. 2 are dual dice, and dual as in 2, not dual as in take that. Metal, magic, and wood, gem. 1 copy of the basic dice, metal, wood, gem, and magic. 1 gives fun, unpredictable bonuses. An example, +3 to a die matching it. It's all about supporting a flexible dice pool. So right now, you can reserve a copy of the Masterworks expansion for King's Forge for a $25 pledge. If you don't have the core game, you can get the base game and this expansion for a $65 pledge, or you can get the core game and all 5 expansions for a $135 pledge. Project runs through December 13th, and the expected delivery is November of 2019. Cool. This is another game I know nothing about, knew nothing about it. So I am finding that Starling Games makes some really cool games. Already played Everdell. Everdell's excellent. Everdell's in the running for my game of the year. Just share that with folks right now. Before Christmas, I'm going to spend a few days, maybe 3 days, talking about my favorite games of the year, and then I'm going to reveal my favorite game of 2018. So my favorite game I played, right? I haven't played everything. Let's get real here. I haven't come close to playing everything. So, but I am going to kind of talk a little bit about, my favorites in different genres and things like that. And there are a few that are really in the running for my favorite game of 2018, and Everdell's one of them. Anywho, check out the Kickstarter for King's Forge, because it sounds like a kind of a cool dice placement game. All right, so my final news piece, as I mentioned, kind of short news today, mainly because I was running around so much. But my friends over at AEG are going to release an interesting looking title next spring, and if you like building games, then you're probably gonna dig this. And here's the dope on Tiny Towns. Yes, well, Tiny Towns. There's just something about the name, Tiny Towns, that cracks me up. You are the mayor of a tiny town in the forest in which the smaller creatures of the woods have created a civilization hidden away from predators. This new land is small and the resources are scarce, so you take what you can get and never say no to building materials. Cleverly plan and construct a thriving town, and don't let it fill up with wasted resources. Whoever builds the most prosperous tiny town will win. In Tiny Towns, your town is represented by a 4x4 grid on which you will place resource cubes in specific layouts to construct buildings. Each building scores victory points in a unique way. When no player can place any more resources or construct any buildings, game ends and any squares without a building are worth -1 victory point. Player with the most victory points wins. 2 to 6 players compete to build the most amazing town. Each turn, the master builder determines which resource will be produced, and all the players gain 1 unit of that resource. Players can decide to use their resources to construct buildings according to the construction cards in play. Choose carefully. Where you build and what you build will determine how dense your town will be, not dense as in duh, and how many points it will score. At the end of the turn, a new player becomes master builder. Play continues until every player's town is at max density, and then each town is scored to determine the winner. Tiny Towns is for 1 to 6 players, so I'm getting conflicting info. I've seen 2 to 6, I've seen 1 to 6, but AEG says 1 to 6, so there must be some sort of solitaire element or variant for you to play solo. It is for ages 14 and up and plays in around 30 minutes. The game will carry an MSRP of $39.99 when it arrives next April. Sweet. So when I first saw this, I kind of thought, oh, wait a second. Come on. Everdell is doing the little animal sounds and stuff like that. But the more I looked into this, the more, different this is going to be than Everdell. And of course, this has been in the pipeline for a while. This is not just something that just came out of the blue. Because I know AEG was talking about this at Gen Con. I know I was talking to Mara, and she was talking about tiny towns. So yes, this is not something that's like, oh look, Everdell's so cool, let's get our own little game. AEG doesn't really operate that way at all. So, all right, anyway, before I jump into the unboxing and first look at A Distant Plane, I want to talk about what's coming up on the rest of the shows this week. And I wanted to mention something. And, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I'm a friendly guy, right? But, there are some people in this hobby, gamers mainly, who, I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's sort of like, are you socially dysfunctional or something? So I'll give you a great example. So I posted, and I had it on the show in the news, this like Asian themed, this like Chinese themed game that, according to distributors, is being released next week from Tasty Minstrel Games. I got Tiny Towns in my head. From Tasty Minstrel Games, right? It's Gugong. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I did a news piece. Looks pretty interesting, right? So, posted that, and somebody on Twitter said, oh yeah, I got the game. It's great. Cool. Because I'm assuming, because I had looked, and it had like, I had looked on, I want to say it was Board Game Geek, because when I see, normally when I see a game box cover and I don't see the manufacturer, the publisher's logo on it, I'll kind of look around to see if I can find one with their logo. Because to me, it's kind of weird when I do like a news piece for a game that's like a foreign language game, and it turns out that another company, let's say, gosh, off the top of my head, I can't even think of one. Anyway, let's say it's like a German company, right? German game, and it's getting an English language release here in the U.S., right? So some other company is producing that; they're going to publish that. Well, I usually try to find the box that's actually got that English language publisher on it when I'm doing a news piece about the English language edition coming out, right? Okay. So anyway, I found the Tasty Minstrel game image. So this person on Twitter is like, hey, you're wrong. It's not a Tasty Minstrel game. It's I want to say Game Crafters game, which I think Game Crafters is like a Chinese company. Maybe. I don't know. I'm like, yeah, okay. But supposedly Tasty Minstrel is releasing an edition of this game next week. I want to say it's like December 4th. And they're arguing with me. No, you're wrong. You're like, no, it's not Tasty Minstrel. And of course, they keep, tagging Tasty Minstrel Games. Who doesn't get into this and say, yeah, we are publishing this or we're not. And just back and forth, like bugging me about it. And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's the sell sheet info. I'm not making this up. So finally, after like the 5th time this person has tweeted at me, I sent him the link to the distributor that shows that, yes, they're telling us that Tasty Minstrel is releasing this game on December 4th. I said, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not pulling this out of a hat. Here's the link. I'm not making up sell sheet info. So after they get all wound up and it's not a back and forth where it's like, well, no, I think no, it's like they're tweeting at me. So once I send that link over, I get a tweet back and says, dude, I don't know what you're getting worked up about. I could care less about this. I was just pointing out your error. And I'm sitting there like, okay, number one, it's couldn't care less, okay? Anybody out there who says, oh, I could care less, is a flippin' moron because the term is couldn't care less. I couldn't care less means I couldn't care less. If you could care less, then it matters to you. That's the whole point of couldn't care less. So anyway, so they're like, I could care less. I'm just pointing out your error. Okay, number one, it's not an error. The distributor is pointing out this is the sell sheet info and it's from Tasty Minstrel. And I'm like, really? Like, seriously? I swear, it's like, and somebody on Twitter, because then I just basically, I got rid of that whole chain of tweets because I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like, I just want to tell this person to F off, right? Because it's like, I'm busy here and I keep getting these tweets popping up like, no, it's not Tasty Minstrel, you fool. So anyway, so I pointed out, I said, there's something about our hobby that just attracts some really socially dysfunctional people. And one of my pals on Twitter would say, well, I think that's like it. That's how it is in life. We run into people all over in life. I'm like, oh yeah, but we just have more of them in our hobby. So, we're talking less than 1%, right? But they're so vocal. That's the thing that like just blows my mind. Because these people get so vocal and so worked up. It's like this person was getting so upset that I kept saying that this edition coming out of this game was Tasty Minstrel Games. And the thing is, I don't think they were associated with Game Crafters or whatever. Anyway, I was like, oh my God. It was just a weird day today. 3 separate people just acting totally bizarre on me. So anyway, all right. You gotta laugh. I just gotta laugh that off because it's sort of like, okay, whatever. Thank God I don't have to sit at a gaming table with that person. So, all right. So what's happening this week, right? So we've got tomorrow. I am going to review Dungeons and Dragons Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Yes, that's right. The latest adventure book for Dungeons and Dragons from Wizards of the Coast. And some people will really dig it. Some people will hate it. And I'm going to discuss that during my review. And I'll tell you what I personally think of it as well. Then on Friday's show, I'm actually finally going to unbox and take a first look at the core game, Mystic Vale. I know I've shown off some of the expansions over the past few years, but I am going to dig into the actual core game, which I've heard great things about. So, anyway, so Brant is joining us again. It says, questioning if gamers are dysfunctional, which seem to be obvious. Yeah, that's true. Here's the weird thing, though, before I jump into this. Even growing up, yes, I was always kind of nerdy. But, I was into nerdy things. Yeah, I love to read. When I was, even before I got into high school, I would, like on a summer day, it wouldn't be unusual for me to be kicking it on our enclosed front porch on the couch there, and I would read maybe 2-3 books in an afternoon. So, even when I was like in about like 5th, 6th grade, I was reading like Salem's Lot and The Stand and things like that. But I have to say, I was never socially awkward. Even though I was into, gaming and science fiction and all this other stuff, I was not a socially awkward person. And I could talk to anybody and, I dated plenty of women over the years and things like that. It's just, I don't know. I do not know why this hobby, I can understand like role playing in some ways, simply because it's such an escape for people, which, I completely understand that. Personally, when I play role-playing games, even as a kid, it wasn't necessarily as like to escape a bad life or childhood or anything like that. It was just, hey man, we're having a blast telling this wacky story. But I can see why we might have some socially awkward people who gravitate towards role-playing games. I don't necessarily know why we get them in board games. It's a weird thing. Don't know. But yeah, I know it seems obvious, but Thing is, the vast majority of people in this hobby are awesome. They're great. I mean, yeah, everybody's got their own little thing, right? Nobody's perfect. But it's just the like that, like half of 1% just tend to just, they're so vocal. Just like they, like they pick on people online and stuff like that. I don't care. It's not, I don't care. People can say whatever they want about me. They can say it online all they want. It doesn't matter. I'm not losing sleep over this stuff. But there are, loads of people out there doing kind of the same thing that I do, or they're kind of the public eye as far as geek culture and stuff that the cranks all gravitate towards and drive them out. So I don't know. Do not know why. Anyway, let's move along. Let's zip along. I'm chatty today. Hey, it's a live show. It's just how it works. I know some people hate that fact, but come on, it's just a live stream. That's why some people are like, wow, your video quality is not as good as like XYZ channel. It's like, yeah, because this is a live stream. I can't stream 4K. What are you, crazy? You can barely get to 1080. So anyway, all right, moving right along. I know folks are tuning in because they want to check out the second edition of A Distant Plane from GMT Games, designed by Voku Runki and Brian Train, with artwork provided by Chechu Nieto. Taking a guess. Oh, rats. See, I thought I had everything taken off there. There we go. Easygoing people are going to let it slide. Usually it's the outspoken that provide feedback. There's not much violent agreement. Yeah, I would say that. I'd say that's about right. I don't know about the outspoken. I happen to be publicly outspoken. What I notice online, a lot of cowards online. A lot of cowards will say something to you knowing that, they're in the ether, right? They're anonymous in the ether. Or, if they said it to my face, they'd be probably getting slugged in the in the nose. That I would do that. No, I'm not violent. Anyway, so there's artwork provided by Chechu Nieto, Xavier Carrascosa, that's my guess. Hey, and Roger B. McGowan. I know how to pronounce Roger's name. The game is available. I am not positive how available this game is, because as I mentioned, there is already a P500 for another printing for A Distant Plane. But if you can't find it, it does carry an MSRP of $78. Let's pop on over to the other camera here, see what we got cooking. There we go. All right, so this is part of the coin series. This is the third title in the coin series, and it is Insurgency in Afghanistan. I'm going to grab the old reading specs here, and I'm going to get rid of the shrink wrap on this. So, okay, so here's something really bizarre, right? So I was talking about, as I've been mentioning on shows how I was going to do an unboxing for this, is that I said, yeah, I did a review for this back in the day, but I didn't remember doing any kind of video for it. So I was taking a look, and I'm like, okay, so I don't see a review on the website, and I know I reviewed this. So I took a peek, and I have mentioned this in the past, that there are some reviews. It's not just reviews, it's just articles, posts, what have you, from like 2013, that when I changed my hosting companies for the gaming gang, disappeared. They are gone. And it's really bizarre. It's basically something didn't transfer over when the database was being moved. But there are probably like 40 or 50 reviews that just are gone. I mean, and there's actually links out there online to some reviews on the Gaming Gang that the pages don't exist anymore. And I have checked. Of course, I didn't find this out until, maybe about 8 months ago. So what I am going to do is I'm actually going to do a review for A Distant Plane. Maybe next week. It might take a couple of weeks because it has been a long time since I played this. So there is actually, if you have the first edition that came out in 2013, there is an upgrade pack that's available. It is actually, it's for both A Distant Plane and Cuba Libre, and it's only $15. So I'm taking a guess that I'm not sure if I've got it or not. I'll have to take a look because I know I've got the Fire in the Lake one, but I want to say that we probably did not see a change in the card decks. So Snowden, Snowden gave them to WikiLeaks. Hey, that's a possibility. Snowden went and took our reviews, and here's the weird thing, though. Most of the reviews were actually my best friend Elliot Miller's when he was with the gaming gang, because that's how he got started in covering tabletop games. We started the website together. So, although he's over at Voice of E now, and he doesn't do anything, so I'm trying to get him to come back on board with the gaming gang, do stuff whenever he wants. All right, so we got the rules of play. So let's take a peek here. Let's see. Do we have enough? We doing okay space-wise? See, here's the weird thing. So I swapped the cameras around, right? So I actually have my main camera, which I was originally shooting this stuff with. Now I'm using that to shoot me because it wasn't sharp. The other, it's just a cam that I'm using for this. But when I was using the cam, the background was not real sharp. Whereas at least now it's a bit sharper using this camera. But the weird thing is there's no screen on the cam. So I have to actually look over this way to see, oh, do I have everything in frame? So people are wondering. And yes, of course, I'm taking a peek to see if somebody's saying something in chat. All right, so got the introduction. So if you're not familiar with the coin series, I'm not sure why you're watching this video, but it's super, really, really interesting mechanics to the games, and they all play differently. So first of all, one big thing is the various different factions in a game. They all play asymmetrical. Everybody doesn't have the same exact kind of actions they can take. Sometimes they have very different victory conditions. And the wildest thing is we've seen everything from Vietnam, Afghanistan. We've got the war on terror, effectively. But then we've got the Roman Empire, the Romans in England. I mean, there is all different stuff. Now, my friend John Welsh, who designed some games mainly with Victory Point Games. I'm not even sure if he's doing any design work anymore. I know he was actually working on a basically the Irish Rebellion for a coin series, but I'm assuming that has fallen by the wayside because that was something he had told me about, probably 3 years ago, maybe. All right, so we're just taking a look through. Talking about non-player factions. Another big aspect of the coin series is that if you can't get the full number of players at the table, you don't have to worry about it too much because you've got AI flowcharts and player aids that you can utilize as well. So, just going through the rule book here. This rule book doesn't have as much by way of images as we tend to see more often now from GMT. Now, of course, there's a few. I mean, it's not like we're looking at like an old SSI rulebook. So you were pretty fuzzy until I realized YouTube defaulted to 240p. Yeah, that's another thing I should point out. You got to take a look because I have had people email and say, wow, your videos are just really, really fuzzy. And it's like, well, have you clicked on the different resolutions? And they're like, What are you talking about? Like, click on the resolution. You got to click on the little gear. You can change it. It's like, come on, they don't look that bad. All right, so we've got the core rulebook. Anyway, but then we got the playbook, and these are things that I just love the playbooks from GMT. They are just excellent. I'm the first one to say all the time that I will actually go and I read the playbook first before I read the rulebook, because I find that reading the playbook makes it easier for me to understand the rulebook. Now, I don't know if that's how everybody pretty much does it, but that's kind of how I do it. So normally what we'll do is we're going to see in the playbooks, we usually get tutorial, we'll get an example of play, usually a pretty in-depth example of play. We'll get some historical notes, which I always love. Now, of course, this is, in a lot of ways, this is a card-driven game. So we get all the information on what do these cards actually represent historically, which I think is very cool also. And then, of course, we get the designer notes, too. So here we're taking a look here, and we get, it's kind of a tutorial, I believe. Yep, right there. It's a tutorial. So it's not necessarily an example of play, but it is walking you through everything. I know that GMT, most of the time, the coin series games, they don't indicate a very high complexity level. I always feel that GMT kind of lowballs their complexity. Maybe I'm just a dope. Why the show's called The Daily Dope, right? But I usually find the complexities a touch higher than what they'll indicate. So, like, if they say a 6 on a scale of like 1 to 9, I think it's more like a 7. So I usually kind of sit there thinking, yeah, you're probably looking at like a 6 rather than 5. So the different factions we've got the coalition. So of course, we got the Taliban, got the government, and then we have the various different warlords. So those are the 4 factions. Talks about guide to counterinsurgency operations. There's a 1-player example of play. So yes, you can play the coin series solo. You can play them solitaire. Going through, gotta be honest, don't recall a lot of the other coin games having like a breakdown of like a 1-player example of play. Now, there's usually some information about it, but this is actually giving us a solitaire example of play. Now, I might be way off. I might be wrong. I just, for some strange reason, I can't think of any off the top of my head outside of A Distant Plane that gives you a breakdown of multiple pages to kind of tell you this is how you play it solitaire. Gandhi finished Civil War in Philippines. Our next 3 coin games. I know Gandhi, right? Gandhi's the next one. Yeah, there is. I knew the Finnish Civil War. I didn't realize the Philippines. I didn't realize that was one of them. There are so many different designs that are floating around out there. So we get design notes from Brian Train. History is game. Game is history. Challenges. There we go. Now we get to the event text. So it talks about the different cards and what they represent. Interestingly enough, we do not see a picture of each one of the cards. Sometimes we see that in the playbooks. They'll show you every single card. I don't necessarily think you need to, but I always love this stuff. Very cool. One of my all-time favorite games is Twilight Struggle. It's like in my top 5. And I also really dig 1960. But I love how you get all the information about, okay, so what does this card really represent historically? I think that's awesome. I love that. All right, so we've got the rule book as well as the playbook. Now we're going to have 4 copies of each of the factions, just like so. So we've got the different factions, what they can do. So, got the coalition. So it's talking about the different, you can train, you can patrol, you can sweep, you can assault. Then you got special activities, surge, airlift, airstrike. So obviously this is the coalition forces led by the United States. Then we get the Afghanistani, I guess we would say, government. So they have their operations, then their special activities. Then we get the warlords. So they get their insurgent operations. Then we get the special activities there. And then, of course, we're seeing a little area down here talking about how each of these factions can gain victory. And then we've got the Taliban. So they've got the Taliban and their operations as well as their special activities as well. So you'll have 4 of these. So each of the players, if you get all 4 players at a table, then everybody's going to get one of these. Trying to remember difficulty-wise, because like I said, now we're talking, it's probably been about 4 years since I played a game of this. Maybe 5. I want to say I was out living in Arizona doing the Gaming Gang when I reviewed this. That's now gone. But I'm trying to remember complexity-wise. To me, the easiest game to introduce anybody into the coin series is Cuba Libre. It's got a much smaller map, much smaller scale. I think some gamers kind of get a kick out of how the Mafia is actually one of the factions. So, all right, so here we got the non-player handouts, the different flow charts. So for an example, let's say you got 2 players and one player's playing as the coalition, the other player's playing as the government. Well, okay. So what you would do then is you got the AI bots. So you would have non-player warlords, and then you'd have the non-player coalition. Or, of course, maybe you might do coalition Taliban, and then you're doing non-player government and non-player warlords. So you've got a couple of these. Get 2 of those. Get a sequence of play. I'm going to guess we got 2 of these. Yep. So there's going to be a player aid here. So we're talking about sequence of play. Got the propaganda cards showing the card list, spaces list, talking about lines of communication, economic value of those lines of communication. So we've got those. Special event instructions. So we've got that, and then we've got random spaces map showing you rolling 6-sided die, different random spaces. Now, one thing the coin series doesn't have a lot of is it doesn't normally have a ton of counters. As we can see here, we only have 1 sheet of counters. We have coin control, so we're showing the different control, terror, aid, patron. Got some special event tokens there, counters there. Dual-sided sabotage. So very nice. There is kind of a Euro game look to the coin series because, and I'll pull out this in just a minute, because there's always a bunch of tokens. So here we've got different discs, we've got different cubes, we've got different kind of pawns, like the red pawn right there. And we've got it's like hexagonal cylinders. Whoops. Just like so. Catch a little light on that so you can kind of see the green. There we go. So, and normally these will represent different things. So sometimes it's like they're like strongholds along those lines. Sometimes you're just marking control of an area by using a cube. So sometimes it'll change a little bit what each of these little wooden cubes or discs or tokens actually represent. And then we got 3 6-sided dice. And as with just about every, I think one time I opened up a GMT game and it did not have baggies. And it actually had counters and stuff. So only once. And I swear GMT always gives you like way more baggies than you could possibly ever need. So we've got that. We've got the deck cards here. So let's take a look at the deck of cards. Crack this open. Move this out of the way. There we go. Yeah, I'll just use the hobby knife to get this open here. So I'm sort of curious, and whenever I do an unboxing and take a first look, usually I don't delve too deeply into what's going on. I kind of like to have things be a surprise when I take a look at stuff. They're all kind of stuck together. I'm going to separate these a little bit. We're not going to look through all of these cards, but anyway, what I was going to say is I am not sure exactly what's changed in this second edition. I don't think it's been a lot. More complex than Cuba Libre and less than Fire in the Lake. Yeah, I think the most complex as far as the coin series, in my opinion, have been Pendragon and Fire in the Lake. So I found those took a little bit for me to start wrapping my head around. All right, so let's see. I'm gonna hold this up here. Yeah, we're in focus. Cool. All right, just to kind of show you some of these cards. So what'll happen is one of the aspects with the coin series that's pretty unusual is that you're gonna know the order that the factions are gonna actually perform actions in that ahead of time. So you'll actually be playing and you will have these events face up. So the interesting thing is that each player does not get to perform actions on every single turn. So if you perform an action on one turn, you are not going to perform an action on the next turn, unless it's something that the actual card itself says that faction does, right? If somebody's somehow playing an event. But for the most part, it's pretty cool because it's sort of like, okay, it's another aspect of the game where you really have to kind of juggle or balance how important is it for you to either perform an action or for you to actually either like go first in a turn or actually perform actions in a turn. So I thought that aspect of the coin series is pretty interesting because, of course, normally in any kind of event-driven, card-driven game, the cards aren't face up. I mean, it just doesn't happen. But in the coin series, they are. So pretty sweet. Is that? Oh, it was like something on the back of the card. I was like, that like some sort of a design on here, but no, just dust or something on the back of the card. That kind of give you an idea. Kind of looking at like strategic partners, prop substitution, development aid, Karzai, power shuffle, prison break. Come on. Oh, there wasn't any other one. Profit sharing, sandstorms, desertions and defections. So, of course, you're just going to take a look at what the event actually does. So you're going to have options, right? So you're going to have options where you can spend operations points. Well, I shouldn't say operations points. You're going to be able to perform operations, or what you can do is you can actually decide you want to actually have the event take place and have the event happen. So kind of cool. Operation Iraqi Freedom. U.S. Taliban talks. Mullah Omar. So pretty interesting stuff. And I mean, really, kind of like torn from the headlines, sort of stuff. Except for Colonial Twilight, which is a 2-player game. The players switch positions based on what they do. Yep. In fact, we'll actually see that on the board here. So let's open this on up. This, I don't think I'm going to be able to squeeze the whole board in. So I'm going to actually move this stuff out of the way for just a second. See how much of the board we can get out here. One of the things I always point out when I'm taking a GMT game out of the box and it's got a big board or map that's in a plastic baggie like this, always be careful because it's super easy to catch one of the edges of the board on the plastic on this thing here, you know, the way the plastic closes up, the little zipper almost, and ding your board, which really stinks, especially when it's like, I haven't even played this game yet and I've messed up the board. Yeah, this board is really a pretty good size. Let's bring this on over here. Yeah, I forgot the size of this board. This is one of the bigger ones, I think. All right, so let's see what we can get in. Oops. All right, so of course we've got the turn marker up here. Or there's that victory points. I'm trying to remember. Like I said, it's been a long time since I played. Coalition available forces, casualties. We've got the various different areas here. So each of the factions is going to have a little area on the board. So we've got government, got a sequence of play right here. I'm going to pick this up a little bit. Move this over a little. And show that off. Yep, there we go. It's got sequence of play. Now down below is the Taliban actions. So unfortunately this doesn't fold so I could show you that. But yeah, I can't even squeeze that in. So we've got an Islamabad track. So yeah, this is I didn't remember this board being this big. The Pendragon board's a pretty good size too, I recall. It's all right. So, and it's really nicely done. Whoops, as I bump that. Really, really nicely done on the mounted board. So pretty cool. Fold that back up. All right, so we've got, whoa, as one of the cards go flying. I'll have to grab that. So we've got the baggies, the 3 6-siders. We've got all the various different wooden cubes and discs and cylinders, and a lot of them will have like indicators of which faction they belong to on there. We've got the deck of cards, which one of those cards just flew off. I'll have to grab that. So we got the deck of cards. We've got the cool mounted board. We've got the sheet of counters, dual-sided. Got the random space map, as well as the special event instructions. 2 player aids with sequence of play, as well as the card list, spaces list. We've got 2 of the AI handouts, the non-player factions, if you're playing factions without players. Then we got the 4 player aids that show the asymmetrical operations available to the 4 factions. The playbook, as well as the rules of play. And that is what we find when we take everything from A Distant Plane, 2nd edition, which is the 3rd printing, 2nd edition, from my friends over at GMT Games. Ah, wait, there's the card. Found it. I thought it flew off someplace else. Don't want to leave that sitting there. One of the cats will get at it. No, not really. All right, so Brent says, thanks for the unboxing. Probably next on my list for coin. I have most of the rest. A Distant Plane, now I'm kind of clicking in the old memory banks. So and it's like I said, it's gotta be probably 4 years since I played. Now you think of all the games that I played between then and now. If I remember correctly, A Distant Plane. It was good. I liked it, but the coin series was still kind of new. There were still some wrinkles that needed to be ironed out of the coin series. So like some other games that came, like other releases afterwards, like Falling Sky, played like a bit more intuitively, I guess is probably the word I would say. So I'm trying to remember. I know I like Distant Plane, but I'm just nothing is jumping back out in my memory about it. So, but it's the coin series are all excellent. I have yet to run across a coin series game that I didn't like. I mean, granted, there were some that I was kind of like, wow, I had a little hard time wrapping my head around this one, but none of them that I did not like. All right, so that's it for today's show. So as I mentioned, on tomorrow's show, I will be reviewing the Mega Dungeon, Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage from Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons & Dragons. So as I always like to say, when you're not checking out videos on the Gaming Gang channel, please visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. By now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. I'll be back tomorrow, so enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.